Hello, Mr. Houseman. We've had reports of a grown adult knocking on every room looking for candy. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
No. Could it be me? I mean, I wear this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle costume every day.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Houseman.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me this week. I'm excited and delighted to have you here. As always, I don't know if you could hear a little bit of the noise in the background. I hope you do, because I am at the Waldorf Astoria Las Vegas in the lobby. Very exciting, because today we're going to be talking with Donald Bowman, who's the general manager here at the Waldorf Astoria Las Vegas. But before we get to Donald, I just wanted to say that this show is brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy technology platform thousands of hotels are using to make more money. So go check out GetRevenueResults.com. That's GetRevenueResults.com, and watch this great video about how management teams can collaborate to make more money. Because if you're out there without a good, coherent plan, you're not maximizing your opportunity. And Duetto is going to help you change that. So go to GetRevenueResults.com. Also, I want to thank Red Roof for being a sponsor and all the fun that we're having at our other shows. Check out the Hotel Design Podcast. I'm here in Las Vegas. I'll be taping some great shows for that this week as well. And of course, checking in with Anthony and Glenn, which I co-host with Hotel Impossible's star, Anthony Melcuri. All right, so on to the good stuff. Donald Bowman, how are you, sir?
Very well indeed. And Glenn, thank you for joining me here at the Waldorf Astoria.
This is great. It's very exciting, and I've been here numerous times back in the olden days, back when it was another brand of which shall not be mentioned today.
Fair enough.
But that's exciting. You've been here since before the transition. When did you actually become a Waldorf Astoria?
59 days ago.
59 days ago.
Who's
oh my
counting?
So nearly 2 months.
2 months.
As a Waldorf.
And I have to tell you, it feels in some breaths like 2 days,
right,
and in some breaths like 2 years.
Right.
So much has been accomplished in that short space of time.
I always find that amazing in life, how something can seem like just yesterday, but simultaneous like ages and ages ago. I wonder if that has to do with us just getting older. I hope not.
Nothing to do with that at all.
No, not at all. So, Donald, I'm curious as what that is like, because I'll tell you a little story. Back in 1987, when I was first looking at colleges to attend, right? My dad took me down to University of Maryland College Park, and we had a reservation at a particular hotel. We had the address. We showed up. It had a different name on the door, and that was before I realized that hotels could change flags and affiliations and all of that kind of stuff. And until I got into the hotel business, I never gave it a second thought. And now I'm curious as to what it's like in that transitional period, especially for somebody who's working at the upper echelon in the ultra luxury space.
It's a great question, and one that many people in the public don't necessarily think of. And it's been fascinating for me because not only did I work here immediately before the transition, it was about 3 years ago I came back as the general manager, but I came back to the hotel because I was the hotel manager when we opened the property 10 years ago.
Awesome.
And so I had this opportunity to create something very unique and special in the heart of Las Vegas. And now I am here recreating it again 9 years later.
I wonder if we met back in the day, because I was fortunate enough to be here for the opening of the whole city center complex. I got to stay here a day before it opened, and I know we had drinks and meal over here at some point, so I suspect you probably came by and said
I have
hello.
no doubt we did cross paths. In fact, I'm quite sad that you don't remember, Glenn.
Yeah, right. I like how you really turn that around and making me look bad. I can take it though, Donald, and I see that this conversation is going to go downhill really quickly.
Not at all. Not at all.
So go on. Tell me a little bit about
the transition.
What's that like?
It's a very intense process. Mm-hmm. Opening a hotel is intense, but transitioning a hotel, I think, is perhaps more so. Because with an opening, you have a chance to build up and spend time with your team, training them, guiding them, and building everything from scratch. And here, the transition literally happens overnight.
Right.
We didn't close the doors for any period of time. But we transitioned in a way that you have to, as you say, when you're operating at the top of a game in the luxury sector.
That's interesting, because there are obviously a big, if you look at the Venn diagram, a huge overlap in service culture with the former brand and the current Waldorf Astoria brand. But there has to be nuances and differences. And when you flip the switch at midnight to change the brands over, everybody's got to get on board.
That's right, and I have to say how proud I am of the team here, because, well, first of all, I'm fortunate that 99% of the team chose to stay.
Wow!
And we had the ability, we had the chance to stay, which we're all deeply grateful for. This is probably the best team I've worked with in my career in terms of how cohesive, professional, and committed to excellence that it is.
Awesome.
And when I learned about the transition, I was actually very sad at the prospect of that getting split up to a degree. Well, here we are. 99% of us have chosen to stay and continue doing what we do so well together.
Why do you think those 3 or 4 people decided to leave? Were they just so affiliated with that other brand they couldn't imagine?
No, it was technicality, visa related that they couldn't stay.
Oh, I see. So 100% wanted to stay then.
Yeah. And a couple of since around that time have decided to move on, but that's just normal turnover.
Yeah.
So that was a real positive for us. But what I'm very proud of them all for doing is embracing change the way they have. And everyone has really taken to look forward as opposed to looking back, because they're very proud of everything that we'd accomplished in 9 years here at the hotel. But now they're proudly looking forward to what they're going to accomplish more or continue. And they really have truly embraced that change. And as you say, many of the standards that we have in the world of luxury do cross over. But how we go about delivering them, how we do so with a new personality that's tied to the heritage of Waldorf Astoria, is something that we're all learning very, very quickly, or have learned very quickly,
right,
and embraced, and really committed to delivering. And it's just been it's been fabulous to watch unfold.
How long did it take you to prepare before the 59 days ago to get everything straightforward and oriented? I mean, it's not like you had to do a renovation because this property is already in pristine condition.
That's very kind of you to say so. We'll talk about renovations later,
yes,
though. Gosh, it's hard to even pinpoint. I mean, we had 2 to 3 months to prepare, but a lot of that preparation had to be done by the Waldorf Astoria team because we were still running a hotel under a different brand at that time. So really a lot came down to crunch time for the team here on property. The Waldorf Astoria team, however, were extremely well prepared. They had very rigorous plans in place to ensure that we were ready. And there's so many things to be ready for. If you start to really think about it, it's not just changing the sign on the door.
Right.
It's changing the logo that is on so many things, and making sure that you have a replacement for anything that had a logo on. It was about actually changing, doing light renovations. Where we're sitting here in our beautiful tea lounge, all the furniture is new, the artwork is new, and the carpeting is new.
It's brand new.
Yeah. And we changed furniture in some of our other public spaces as well that same week. Literally overnight, we unplugged really most of our systems and plug new systems in. That's an enormous undertaking, let alone doing all of them at the same time overnight.
Right, especially if you're changing, like the PMS, for example. That's got to be, very stressful alone, let alone with all the other things that you need to
your back office system, let alone, many, many different systems.
So how many hours did you go without sleeping that week?
Sleep was short.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put it that way. But, hair and makeup does amazing things.
But at least you know a great place you could stay, right?
Yes, exactly.
Get a few hours of shut-eye if you needed
exactly
to.
Right.
What's it like since it changed? I always think about how cool it would be for a guest to come in and check in with one property and then wake up the next day and have it change. The guests must have been, I'd say some were probably really cool with it, some were probably really confused with it, some were probably, who cares?
Mostly, they were quite interested and many quite excited.
Right.
We had some of our most loyal repeat guests purposefully book themselves to be here that night because they wanted to see the next evolution of their beloved hotel. And we've had guests staying here 150 times and more in the 9 short years we've been open.
That's insane. I've only been to Vegas about 100 times in the last 20 years. That's some dedication right there. And
they wanted to be here to be with the team that they've got to know and to see their hotel change. They felt as part of it, as much a part of it as the rest of us that were here overnight. So I think most found it fascinating that they would go to sleep in one hotel and then wake up the next morning at a Waldorf Astoria. And things in their rooms were changed overnight. So anything that was branded changed overnight. They got a special commemorative note from me, along with a Waldorf Astoria gold coin.
That's fun.
Because they were part of that very unique moment in time. Then there was the less fun part, actually having to produce a credit card again back at the front desk. But that's just a process that we had to go through.
Right.
Very much, almost everybody was very understanding because we'd been in contact with everyone in advance.
Right, and especially if a lot of people were booking the hotel specifically for this event, then you've already got plenty of goodwill. I can't imagine people really getting all in a tither about it.
No. I think everyone was very, very understanding.
That's pretty interesting. All right, so tell me a little bit about how the Las Vegas guest has changed over the last 9-10 years since this property originally opened. City Center was a huge deal when it first made its debut. It really tried to look to change the paradigm of it, but the city is continually evolving over time, and you don't want to be left behind in that.
It truly is. It's fascinating. Even 9 years ago when we opened, the source of revenue on the Strip was still very gaming based, and now it's much, much less so.
I believe citywide it's 60% off the floor, 40% gambling.
That's about right, and it was probably a flip of that 10 years ago.
Right.
And it continues to change. And that's really, I think, one of the reasons this hotel was conceived as a non-gaming, non-smoking, pure luxury, standalone, unique property right in the heart of the Strip. It's a one of a kind. And the clientele for a hotel like this is growing with every year because there's so much more entertainment and activity in the city. There's so much more fine dining. There's so much more amazing retail experiences. And more and more. And conventions and meetings are becoming more of a reason to come here. And so increasingly there are people that really appreciate a home like ours while in the city.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And the city has continually changed. I love the direction that it's going in because I've not been a big gambler, right? I'm one of those guys that it's late at night. I'm not quite ready to go to bed, so I'll put $20 in a slot machine and hope I get a bonus round, right? That's about as serious as I am with the gambling. But I love the fact that I could go see great shows. I could go see a concert. I'm going to go see a concert while I'm here in town this week, as a matter of fact. And I love the variety of dining options and how places such as City Center have continued to adapt their dining, as a matter of fact.
And evolve. And you touched on something I didn't even mention. The entertainment scene
it's insane.
Is incredible. We have the new Park Theatre next door, and of course T-Mobile Arena,
right,
which opened just a year and a half ago, and now we have sports. And the Golden Knights, the hockey team locally, has been incredible in terms of uniting the city and changing the city and drawing new business to the city. And that's going to continue with football, and who knows what's around the corner from there.
I know. Well, so let's talk about those Golden Knights and football and stuff like that. That really does change everything, and I loved what the Golden Knights have done in terms of being spokespeople for the city and really being a unified factor and drawing everybody together after tragedy. But more important, just being very symbolic of positivity for what Las Vegas can be and showing that a sports team can be successful here. I always thought it was going to be a great idea. It's amazing to see how many people have season tickets, and gosh, I haven't seen a hockey game yet, but that's definitely something I need to do.
Oh, and I've seen plenty, and I didn't know much about hockey before,
right.
As you can may be able to tell from my accent. It's field hockey where I come from, not ice hockey. But that team has been remarkable for the city. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, it's pulled the city together at a very difficult time, and the city follows them with such passion. I'm sure that's what drove their incredible performance to a degree last year. I'm part of that. Everyone I know is part of that. Everybody I know has some item of Vegas Golden Knights apparel and wears it proudly. And you see it wherever you travel in the world. And that is only going to continue, as I mentioned, with football coming in 2020, and who knows what sports closely on the heels.
Yeah, as of recording this interview, I just landed. I haven't had a chance to see the progress of the stadium, but I'm excited to see it. One of the things I loved when they were building the arena, the T-Mobile Arena where the Golden Knights currently play, is they did these great videos of them doing the construction that they put up, and I've got to go find some of those for for the stadium that's going up
and
too.
We'll take a look from the Sky Bar right next to us here. You can actually look right down on the site from the hotel, and you can see how rapidly it's coming up.
Yeah, I've stayed at Mandalay Bay a couple of times while this construction has been going on, just to see them. For the first year it was just pushing dirt around, and then I started to see like footings and stuff, but I haven't seen the vertical rise yet.
And from here in the Sky Bar, we're up on the Sky Lobby level on 23, sweeping views of the Strip, and that goes all the way from that new arena all the way down to Paris and beyond.
All right, let me plug this for 1 second for you, because it does have some of the best views that I've ever seen. Yeah, Mix is great as well, but if you want something a little bit different, a little bit fun, this view is phenomenal, and I've definitely come here and had my share of martinis taking a look at that view.
Thank you for coming in. I'm looking forward again to New Year's Eve this year. We always have a phenomenal New Year's Eve event here, and watching the fireworks in complete synchrony across the city from this view.
How cool is that?
It's second to none.
Yeah. So, I think we've talked about the property enough. I want to talk a little bit about you there, Donald. How did you discover the hospitality industry? What motivated you not just to get into the business, but in the luxury sector of the business? Because that's a lot different than other avenues in this business that we're in.
That's a very long story.
That's all right. I got time.
No. We'll keep it very brief. I
only have 9 hours left on the chip that I'm recording on.
I actually started in hospitality in a small 30-room tea shop on the Royal Mile of Edinburgh.
That's cool.
And I remember at a very tender age, I'm probably not allowed to say because I'm not sure I was working at a legal age at that point.
I think that they won't come after you.
I walked in and the manager told me, today you're going to make scones and lasagna. And I burst out laughing.
What now?
and literally you did everything from soup to nuts in that place. What I learned in the 4 or 5 years I worked in this little tea shop, I got such a passion for it. Yeah. Because in the winter, we had locals, and they were sort of the bread and butter of our business. And there I learned the importance of learning about people, what they like, getting to know them very personally, so that they would keep coming back. And in the summer, we had tourists, and I loved becoming part of their vacation experience and sharing what I learned at school about the history of Edinburgh and becoming part of that holiday with them. And if you think about it, that's exactly what I do today running a luxury hotel. It's knowing people's preferences and becoming part of their experience while they're staying here. And, of course, encouraging my team here to do exactly the same thing.
Right. Well, when you have loyal guests that stay upwards of 150 times over 9 years, you really do get to know them not just as customers, but as people as well, and you're able to much better deliver those personalized experiences. But what about folks that haven't really stayed here before? Maybe it's their first time. How do you find that insight in order to personalize their experience so that they go away with those memories that are so important? And this is something that I talk about often on this podcast, because one of the issues that I see is hoteliers are amazing, and everyone does 98, 99% of everything so well. And the way to connect with people is by creating those intimate moments between human beings. So how do you do it?
Unforgettable moments.
Yes.
And that's truly what Waldorf Astoria is all about. And that's, I think, what our team have embraced, is they're learning the culture of this wonderful new company. Really, you take every opportunity to search for preferences and search for things about a guest even before they've arrived at the hotel. And that can be during the reservations process. Our personal concierge at the hotel now reach out to guests prior to arrival to understand what they're planning during their trip and how we can help them do that. And it's at that point you might discover it's something as simple as a birthday or an anniversary, or something much more unique. It might be a special trip recovering from an illness that has been sort of the beacon of light that people have been looking forward to. And it can be all ends of the spectrum. Or it could just be for a work trip, and really then you're dialing things in to make things as convenient for that guest during their stay as possible. So it really is, exactly as you say, learning what you can along the way to create those unforgettable moments for our guests.
How do you get your team to be behind you in that never-ending quest to create those perfect experiences?
You do it by leading by example, but equally you do it by sharing examples. And we celebrate anytime we hear a story like that. And I have piles and piles of these stories in my office that I love to share. I think just before we started the podcast, I was talking to Betsy here in the tea lounge about how she did something really unique and found a very rare tea for a guest that had it at some other restaurant and had been searching for months, in fact over a year. And Betsy was able to find a sample for her to take home in a tin.
That is something that's really cool because she put all of that time and effort into it, and she's made an indelible connection now with that guest who's not only going to carry that with them inside forever, but go home and share it with their family, with their friends. And I think that's really what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day, is getting those people to go, wow, I've got to go stay with Donald and his team at the Waldorf.
That's right, yeah. And, we do it because that's why we're here. This team is so proud to work in and run one of the best hotels in the world. And everybody wants to play their part in doing that every day. And we work very hard to keep that pride at the very highest level, because I think that pushes us to push the envelope on a daily basis.
Right. So how did you wind up here in Vegas, of all places?
It was transferring with my last company around the world. 10 moves in 18 years, and
wow.
We wound up here in Las Vegas. And who would have believed, of course, for years people have said, well, where have you enjoyed living the most? And my answer was always, well, it's where I am today.
Right.
Because you can't look back. You have to look forward, or you have to focus on what you have today. But truly, that is the right answer. It is where I am today. This is probably the best place I've had the fortune to live and work.
Why?
It's a remarkable community that we're in, and I think just describing what happened with the Golden Knights in the last year is part of that.
And I think I know where you're going, and let me just interrupt for 1 second. Sorry, just to fill the listeners in, that Las Vegas is a really small town, and very quickly everybody knows everybody. So when you're coming in, it's not like being in New York City. This is almost, it seems like this is a big town, but this is really like a small little neighborhood.
It is. And you live in regular neighborhoods, and the quality of life here is actually excellent. And I'm a chap that grew up in grey, drizzly, snowy, cold Edinburgh. And here, fabulous weather all year round. A great quality of life. My wife and I love being in the outdoors, and we have plenty of opportunity to do that throughout the year here, whether that's running, biking, hiking, golfing, whatever it might be. And I get to run the best hotel in the city. And the parking spaces, I think, are bigger than anywhere else in the world.
Oh, that's really important.
It's just a great place to live.
I like a good roomy parking space, yeah. Donald. So that's really good. So, How do you motivate everybody to keep them going, to keep reaching for that never-ending quest for excellence? Because I know how I'm like. I can come out really strong for a while, but the longer you're with something, the more you can fall into that land of complacency, which would be the death knell for a guy like you.
Well, I think there's two key ways, and I touched on one already. That is continually building a sense of pride in the workplace. And of the part that every individual here has to play in that. And we talk about that regularly. So I think that really does push us to a higher level. The other thing is we have a very unique team atmosphere here. And you'll hear most people say, oh, we've got a great team in the workplace. But this is really an extraordinary group of people that we take an enormous amount of time to handpick when we're hiring. When we hire, we have a minimum of 3 interviews. I meet every final candidate, and it's not because I need to know if they are qualified to provide a great spa treatment in our fabulous 27,000 square foot spa, which covers 2 whole floors of the building. That was a shameless plug.
No, I like that. And you will have time for more shameless plugs, so don't you worry.
I don't need to know that they can provide a perfect treatment. I don't need to know that someone knows how to use a system. I want to know, will they fit this amazing group of people that work here? because they are like-minded. They share a passion for service, and they share a passion for each other. And this is, I think, the most important factor. This group of people care about each other, and it's not insular department by department. We're a relatively small hotel for Las Vegas.
How many rooms are here?
389.
Okay, I thought it was 350. Okay.
But for Las Vegas, that is small.
Pretty, yeah.
And
especially when you're looking at, City Center, which is, 3,000 or something?
4,000 rooms
4,000 at Aria.
Yeah.
Right.
And so everybody truly does get to know each other. In the quad, our team member dining room, everyone will sit at any table. There isn't a housekeeping table. There's not a front office table. And the best way I describe it is the service elevator. Everybody talks to everybody else. Everybody has a kind word for everybody else. If you see someone that's working at the pool in the heat of the summer, they say, make sure you get enough water in you today. Stay hydrated. We might see someone from housekeeping trying to deliver the laundry, the linen to the floors. People will get out of that elevator and wait for the next one to make sure that gets to where it needs to go. And that supports the best level of service on a daily basis. It's that caring for each other, long before we care for our guests, that pushes us to a whole different level.
That's a really great approach. I love how you're trying to find the perfect team by hiring in exactly the right way. Is that becoming more challenging over time as more properties open and we've switched more towards people going out to dinner all the time and going to shows all the time as opposed to going and building stuff?
I don't know that it's got more difficult to hire, particularly in this city. I think it's always a challenge for us. But we continually push ourselves not to become complacent and not to accept second best, and really wait until you find the right person that is that needle in the haystack.
So why be a general manager? Why not go into a different side of the business? Because my milieu is I'm usually at the national conferences and stuff like that with the executives of the big brands and the management companies and stuff like that, and I don't get to have great interactions with folks like you, which I'm loving right now having this conversation with you.
Likewise.
Yeah, but so why stay at the property level and not go somewhere else in the hospitality business?
Well, first of all, never say never. You never know what the future holds. But equally, this is, it's a life passion. It's something that I've been doing all my life and building towards. I think I did a hotel and catering management degree back in the UK, and my goal was to become the general manager of a luxury hotel by the time I was 40. I don't know how it got into my head, but it did. And terrible. I missed the goal by a year, but made it. And really, when you work towards something like that, that's something that clearly you have passion for. And when you work with people, that's what I think keeps you fully engaged.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Now, on my Checking In podcast with Anthony and Glenn, we spoke to Tomas Carreras. He's the general manager of the Four Seasons New York downtown. His story was very similar to yours. He dreamed of being a general manager, and he spent 20 years trying to achieve that position. You had that same single-minded focus, yes?
Yes, that's right, yeah. And I think, I say to a lot of younger managers now, I think it's very healthy to have a big goal like that in mind, because it helps you make decisions along the way. You graduate and the world's your oyster. In fact, there's just too many oysters. Yeah. You have all these things to choose from, and you have to start narrowing it down. And I don't think it hurts to have a big goal like that to help narrow down and refine the choices that you make in your career along the way.
So how did you go on that journey to actually achieve this position? What were some of the strategies that you are thinking of? You can see I'm getting more involved now with I want people that are coming up like on your team to have the opportunity to understand what you went through so that they could follow the same type of path.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was taking opportunities as they arise, as well as not always being too quick to move. There's a lot of...
That's interesting. That's converse to what I would have thought.
Well, this is another piece of advice I sometimes share. I think nowadays we talk about millennials and always wanting what's next. I don't really think that's anything to do with millennials. I just think that's people that are young in general.
Right.
When I was younger, I wanted what's next all the time. And I realized that at some point in my career I needed a period of consolidation where I spent longer in a management role. That way I had to live with the consequences of my decisions. That way I could demonstrate over time I truly was responsible for results that we were generating. And it really gave real credence to your abilities rather than hopping every year maybe through different roles.
So it gave you a sense of grounding, and it allowed you to evaluate yourself as a professional as to where you're excelling and where you needed to continue to refine your skill set.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Huh. That's interesting, because most people, like you were just saying, want to go move. Yet you have moved a lot over this time. What were some of the cool cities that you've lived in?
I'm going to give you them in, well, let's go.
Chronological?
So I started in Edinburgh, lived in London, was in Bermuda, San Francisco, Hawaii, back to Bermuda, Las Vegas, Chicago, Carmel, San Francisco, Las Vegas, and here we are today.
So, in all of these places you've been, what are some of the similarities and differences you've seen about people that work in the hotels or in the people that are visiting the hotels? Or are we all just kind of the same in this human experience?
Not sure I could identify major differences.
Yeah.
Particularly as really that whole journey was through luxury hotel management. So the guests that you're working with, that you're delighting on a daily basis, they're international travelers anyway. I think, certainly there's been cultural differences in certain parts of the world that I've worked in, and that's been part of what shaped my management style, if you like. And you just learn from each of those. You take something away from each of those experiences.
Right. By the way, I'm going to Bermuda next week.
Oh, you are?
A matter of fact.
We'll talk after the show.
Yeah, I'll be at the Fairmont Southampton attending the Chico's conference with HBS. That's the Caribbean Hotel Investment Operations Summit, I think. So I know it's a very fancy name there, right?
And it's a very special island.
I love Bermuda. It's such a beautiful, beautiful place. It almost it's so clean and so nice. It reminds me of like Epcot.
It is perfect. The meticulous care every Bermudian has to look after their roofs, their gardens, everything. It does become a little Disney-like in a way.
Did you feel like you needed to move because of your career aspirations, or you just got tired of wearing shorts?
Could never get tired of wearing shorts. No, it was time for a career change.
Of course,
it was
I was just joking.
A very special place to live, I have to say.
So what's next for you, Donald Bowman, and the Waldorf Astoria here in Las Vegas?
Well, for us here, now we've rebranded. We're working vigorously on some redesign plans for the hotel, redesigning our guest rooms, which we look forward to undertaking next year. And then really taking a comprehensive look at our food and beverage outlets, from Twists by Pierre Garnier, our five-star fine dining outlet here as well on the Sky Lobby, as well as the Tea Lounge and the Sky Bar where we are, and Zayn Kitchen, our other restaurant, our sort of Asian-inspired restaurant on the third floor. Really, there's no answer yet as to exactly what that will look like, but it's a very exciting time as we really think about the new opportunities we have to recreate here.
Last question I have for you: you've got a robot concierge here.
We do.
Yes,
Pepper.
Yeah, it also named Pepper. I was saying, is that your name? Is Pepper? Is that your name? Because I was in Seattle last week at a conference, and somebody had a Pepper robot, and she's a great dancer, by the way.
She is a great dancer. I've seen all of her dances and participated with her on many occasions. She really has been a remarkable addition to the team. She's not just a gimmick. Actually, she's the result of a lot of thinking about the guest experience nowadays, and how people have different ways they like to enjoy their experiences. Particularly if you're in a hotel for different reasons. Sometimes you're here for leisure, sometimes for business, sometimes you need just a quick answer. Pepper is trained to answer some of the most common questions we get here at the hotel. And so if a guest doesn't need to have a five-minute discussion about options for a restaurant or to find out where the pool is, Pepper can provide that very, very quickly for our guests. But she's also got great appeal to many guests visiting. And you see guests interacting with her throughout the day as she's here in the Sky Lobby.
Great manners and tells great jokes. So if you're here at the Waldorf, ask her to tell you a joke. She got a whole bunch of them. Donald, I think is there anything that I missed that you really want to get out before I tell you to do some shameless plugs for the resort?
I think we've covered everything pretty comprehensively.
I think we do. All right. So shameless plug away. How can people find the resort and stay with you?
Well, you can look us up online at waldorfastorialasvegas.com. Really, we're right at the heart of Las Vegas, as I think I touched on earlier. We're really, the center of gravity of the Strip has really shifted over the recent years, and we're right at the center of it. So if you're a guest that does want to enjoy Las Vegas, but without being in a casino, we are the perfect location. You can step out, you can go and dabble, but you can come back and enjoy the atmosphere at the hotel. And that's not to say it's a quiet place. There's an amazing sense of activity and fun at the hotel as well, that you can enjoy at the different outlets that we've talked about throughout this little conversation today.
Excellent. I love it. So I encourage everybody to come and check out the Waldorf Astoria here at City Center, Las Vegas. Are they even still calling this place City Center?
I think we'd say Aria more
All
now.
Right, yeah,
but
okay.
That's the origin. That's the roots
Well, City
of
Center
it.
was a whole complex.
That's
with
right.
With this hotel, with Veer, with Vidara,
and
with
Crystal's
Aria.
Luxury Retail just across the bridge. Yes.
Yes, and Crystals. Yes, which I walked through just before.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I really appreciate you coming out to see us while you're here in Las Vegas, Glenn. Come
Excellent.
anytime.
This was a lot of fun. So stick around, because after the commercial break, I've got another great interview, and I would tell you who it is, but as I'm recording this, I just do not know. I have so many in the can. We'll see. But you already know because you read the show notes. I haven't, so you know something I don't. Thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after this message.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. So as you know, this has been a pretty exciting year for Red Roof. A couple of months ago, I told you about Hometown Studios by Red Roof and how it's an excellent opportunity for franchisees looking to get in on the incredible explosive growth of the extended stay segment. Remember what I told you in the past. Lodging Econometrics says 27% of all new hotels in the pipeline are extended stay. This market is hot. And today, there's already 40 Hometown Studios open, with more opening every single week as their $50 million renovation program is completed. Each apartment-style studio offers the amenities guests want, including upgraded decor, kitchenette with full-size refrigerator, on-site laundry facilities, free Wi-Fi, and more, all while continuing Red Roof's tradition of clean, comfortable accommodations at an unmatched value. Meanwhile, franchisees get Red Roof's significant brand awareness, their seasoned management team, and their richest-in-class loyalty program. More than 2.5 million members! And just happens to be the least expensive loyalty program for owners. And that's in addition to their award-winning marketing department and a dedicated website based on their fastest in-class with mobile-first technology. Finally, with Hometown Studios by Red Roof, you'll be working with a company with a franchisee satisfaction of 94%. That's amazing. And twice my high school GPA. And those franchisees will tell you genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's how Red Roof does business. So get in on the new way to extended stay and visit redrooffranchising.com or call 888-473-8861. That's redrooffranchising.com or 888-473-8861. And tell them Glenn sent you.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Houseman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, Glenn Houseman. I am super excited today because I've finally, after all this time, broken through, and I've gotten someone foolish enough from Kimpton to actually speak with me on this podcast, and that is Kathleen Reidenbach, the Chief Commercial Officer. Kathleen, welcome aboard. I'm so glad finally someone from your company is willing to talk to me. How are you today?
I love it. Hi, Glenn. I am great. How are you?
I'm great. For a second, I thought you hung up on me. Maybe you had some second thoughts, and that was going to be the end of it. But no, we are here today. And Kathleen, I'm excited to speak with you because I'm really into the whole notion behind your latest brand campaign, which is Stay Human. Now, for me, Kathleen, I think this is great because I speak at a lot of events around the country, and I'm preaching the whole idea of keeping the humanity and hospitality with technology and robots and all of this stuff coming. I'm so afraid that we're not going to be able to turn transactional relationships into setting the stage for experiences. Tell me a little bit about how you and Kimpton see it.
Yeah, it's funny. We have talked a lot about humanity, and we talk a lot about sort of our internal culture around heartfelt care. We use the word love a lot around here at Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. And it just sort of came about because as we were thinking about how we talk about what it is that Kimpton provides our guests, the word humanity comes up a lot. And
right.
I think that in this, ever sort of increasingly harsh world at times, in a way that where people are feeling sort of more disconnected, I think, than ever before, despite having so much technology, the ability to stay human, to stay with Kimpton, and to feel at home, I think, is something that we bring to the table that is special and unique and frankly, much needed right now.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm always surprised about is how that whole idea of technology was going to bring us together. The whole idea of social media and connecting us more has in a lot of ways driven wedges between ourselves, not just in a macro sense that we're seeing here because of necessarily of politics in the country, but even in our ability to have one-on-one relationships with our family and friends. I see that constant struggle to keep the humanity just here in my household alone because of the infection of technology. So how does the Stay Human campaign play itself out in returning that role of humanity into the hospitality environment?
So we came up with this really fun idea called Room 301, which stands for 1 room, 3 months. And we developed some really interesting interactions and activities within the room to sort of uncover, is there actually a connection that people can have that stay in the same room, night after night, that don't even know each other? So we thought that this could be kind of a fun social experiment to sort of see if we can start to build some connections. And there's some elements in the room where you can leave messages for each other, you can build an interactive playlist. The list goes on, all the way down to sort of a down-home version of the bed and breakfast, guest book, where you can talk about your stay, talk about where you ate, talk about how you're feeling that day, and really just try to build a sense of community within, 4 walls of a guest room.
So how are people reacting to this? I love the concept of it. I know it's only temporary for 3 months. I mean, it's right there in the name, Room 301. But how are people actually living and breathing it into life? I watched this great video that's on it, and you could find it on the KimptonHotels.com blog, which is KimptonHotels.com/blog/room-301-social-experiment. Or you could probably find it on YouTube as well. So what are some of the things specifically that people are doing? I love the little board that you guys have in the room with all the little letters and you stick them up on the board. It reminds me of the old school movie marquees, for example.
Exactly. We've had a ton of interest. We've had over 100 inquiries already for reservations and looking in to try to find dates that would work. We've had a number of people already stay in the guest room. And what's been fun is you see such a range. You see individuals, people just wanting to stay in the room by themselves. You see people wanting to stay in their room that have stayed with their kids. You see couples staying there, friends staying in the room. So it's really a wide range. And I think we were curious to see whether people would have interest and would be drawn to it or scared of it. And in fact, there seems to really be this appetite for discovery and for to do something that's a little bit different and really to build this interesting connection.
Right. I think that's so cool to me that you're able to create a flow through and actually think about the guests that were there before you and the guests that were there after you. I've been thinking a lot about that when I stay in hotel rooms now, because the whole idea is to create the illusion that no one's ever really stayed in your room before. You know, it's supposed to be super clean and all of that kind of stuff. But here, you're connecting the experience to the people that have come previously before you and previously after you. It's kind of like, hey, it's like the blockchain for hospitality in the real world, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, people have been just extremely positive about it, and I think they're looking for a truly immersive experience. And I think that you hear a lot about, you know, people stay in hotels and they go into new markets and new cities and they want to just really have this sense of discovery and eat at the really fun, cool new restaurants and bars and go shop at the really fun boutiques and discover the new hot museum. And in fact, there's this whole other level of community and sort of insight that they can gain by staying in this room, which just adds this other dimension to travel that we haven't seen out there in the market.
So what are you learning from this about your guests, about Kimpton hotels and restaurants, and about what you can offer in the future to fully engage customers and make them want to come back over and over again?
So it's interesting. We're still in the information gathering. So it's early days, and we'll really take all that info. I can tell you what I've learned so far is, one, people's willingness to put themselves out there and to share and to connect is, I think, larger than I even anticipated. And I think that the interest level in the room just demonstrates this passion I think people have for building a community, even if it's inside of a guest room and even if people never meet. And I think that's fascinating. So it's going to certainly beg the question and certainly spark a lot of interesting conversations with our guest experience and our operations team, with our restaurant and bar team, with our design team about, you know, how do we build spaces and and how do we create that level of connection, and how do we create an environment, of course, that's safe, where people can share ideas, because certainly there are venues, right? There's review sites, there's online communities, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's all these places, but at the same time it's overwhelming. And at some point, you know, you may even just trust the insights of the last 10 people that stayed in that guest room or stayed in that hotel and that truly, you know, seem to be walking in your same shoes. So the level of authenticity and the level of connection now has to be so tight for you to really value that relationship and that experience and that advice.
So why make this temporary and not permanent if you feel that you're learning so much? Is it just not practical?
No, you know, I think it's on the table.
Oh, okay.
I think we're gonna sit down after the 3 months and really digest all the insights and figure out, you know, are there some elements that really drive the way we build our public spaces, our meeting spaces, but also our guest rooms. And then what's really cool is a number of our properties are tapping into and using the inspiration behind Room 301 to develop their own activations in the end of this year and into 2019. So what I'm really psyched about is the Everly took Room 301. We came up with some really fun ideas and ways to engage, whether it's the Spotify playlist or whether it's the Angel Wings, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And they did it their way, but the way that the, you know, Hotel Allegro wants to do it, or the Schofield in Cleveland wants to create sort of a leave your mark moments light box where they create some elements inside the guest room. Those are some fun things that they can do in their own unique way, which is truly aligned to Kimpton. So I think it's going to be cool to see what happens next at other Kimpton destinations across the country.
Yeah, I think it's really cool what you're doing at the Kimpton's Iconic Hotel in Manchester, Vermont, where you're constructing a community puzzle with handwritten quotes. I think that's pretty cool. And the Kimpton River Place Hotel with an origami social hour for a moment of Zen. I need more Zen in my life, but I'm afraid my lack of ability to fold things will just make me go a little bit nuts. But how are people responding to that? Probably more Zen than I would.
Right, exactly. I know. Origami is a tough one for me as well.
It just shows. It just reminds me of what I can't do, but I love what people
we all
can
have our
do.
areas.
Right?
I've decided we all have our areas.
My strength is complaining about stuff, not folding paper. So when you guys, maybe you guys could put together a group like that. No, that probably would not be a good social experiment. Back to origami. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right. So I think things like origami, another one are fun ways for people to connect. I think to learn something new, to push some boundaries. A playfulness certainly is an element of it, a way to sort of express yourself and show your creativity. I think people are, in many respects, kind of, nose to tail, kind of head down, doing their job, coming home, taking care of their kids, eat dinner, go to bed, same routine. So anything like that, whether it's the origami or at the Palomar in Philadelphia, they've just totally overhauled one of the guest rooms and made it a green room where there's live plants and all sorts of really cool design that like brings plants into the guest room experience like I've never seen before. I mean, pictures of the shower, all these hanging plants, and it's wild. So I think whatever it is that just really helps people to stop in their tracks and just take a moment, I think is extremely powerful. Otherwise, you just go day to day, week to week, plane to plane, hotel to hotel, and all of a sudden you wake up and it's 10 years later.
Well, I think that's kind of the challenge that you have there, is trying to help people find that inner sense of place with and all the craziness that's going around us. Because I think you eloquently said it, that before you know it, 10 years goes by and you don't even know what happened. I mean, I feel like the last 20 years has gone by in a blink, and it's very hard to connect myself to the past because a lot of it just seems so fleeting. We're running through the motions. We're not taking enough time to say that cliche and stop and smell the roses out there. So are you finding that people are willing and open to take that deep breath and have that experience that's grounded in a sense of 3D reality as opposed to 2D video screens when they're in Kimpton properties across the country?
They are. I mean, I even look at some of our sort of tried and true touch points and experiences, right? We're known for our wine hour every evening. I mean, the number of people that just come down there and have a glass of wine, and you see strangers talking to each other, and so you see things like that happen, and they're sharing where they ate dinner, and then they're talking to the general manager, and he says, I love this little Italian place around the corner, and I just see things like that are still happening that frankly I'm surprised at, and think, I can't believe people still go down and hang out at a wine party with a bunch of strangers instead of going into the bar. I mean, they want that. And I think it's about setting the venue up for it, because I think a lot of people won't do it for themselves.
I'm sorry, Kathleen, because I think what you're telling me is that in this constant world of connectivity that we have, we're lacking actual connectivity. And the hotel, at least Kimpton Hotels, is the great conduit to bring true connectivity between people to encourage stronger bonds with the humanity aspect of travel.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think what we're trying to solve for in many cases is obviously we have these beautifully designed hotels and these great restaurants and bars and really fun venues.
Right.
But I know, I mean, I'm on the road sometimes almost every week. And especially when you're traveling by yourself, you sometimes only utter a few words at best, right? Your first name, your last name. You give them a credit card, and maybe sometimes I get the word Chardonnay out. And then other than that, like I'll notice like my mouth doesn't even open to even say that much more. So I think that people are looking for that connection, but they just need to be jolted out of it, unfortunately.
So when you're thinking in your role as chief commercial officer, what other types of things are you thinking to engage that customer? Because now we're in the industry, we're talking more about the overall customer journey from that moment of travel inspiration. How are you looking to connect with the traveler at that beginning part to bring that human element to it, even though we're living in this digital world?
Yeah, so I think one of the big ways we do that is certainly through our social media efforts and the way that we engage. Our Instagram feed is 100% user-generated content, so they are real guest posts that are absolutely amazing. They are exceptional photographers. I couldn't do it myself. So we really try to bring at least this level of depth and humanity, I think, to the way that we show up in Instagram and the way that we're engaging with our guests. And you look at our copy, I think, we don't have rules and guidelines about how you're supposed to talk on, respond to a guest. It's just be yourself. It's, if a guest makes a comment, we respond back as I would talk to you right now. So it's a highly unscripted approach, which I think ultimately lands us in a place of stronger connection and more love back and forth.
In a world where, Kimpton is one of the founders of the boutique hotel movement, and now it seems like every hotel company in the world is trying to achieve, what Kimpton achieved and Morgan's did, and then Joie de Vie, for example. How do you continue to differentiate yourselves when everybody keeps moving to where you were? That seems awfully challenging to me.
It can be when you start to see. I mean, it's impressive to see, and the amount of new boutique hotels that have started up in the last several years, and there's some beauties out there for sure. Mm-hmm. Our focus has been unwavering on our culture and our people, and that is since the beginning of time when Bill Kimpton founded Kimpton in 1981. He really set out to develop and create a culture where people feel empowered, where people can be creative and passionate and feel loved and heard. And I think it's that sort of San Francisco sort of entrepreneurial spirit that has been our guiding light. And it's really allowed us to create a special place where people feel the warmth and they feel at home. So you can build the most beautiful hotel, you can stand up the coolest restaurant and bar, but if the place falls flat, if it has no energy and warmth to it, you're on to the next place. So we really continue to focus on that and invest in that element and figure out how we can give our employees the tools to be their best selves. And that's been so important to me. I've been at Kimpton for 16 years, and the commitment that Kimpton's made to help me be not just better in my job, but to be a better mom and to be a better wife and better friend has been incredible and very special to me. And I think that flows through the whole organization. And our guests and our employees feel it.
And it's great that you're focusing on that, because I think a lot of the hotel brands out there do such a great job with design and setting the stage for experience, but it's that intangible stuff that really makes a difference to make the emotional connection with the customer, and that will win them and their loyalty time and time again. And I see one of the ways to really do that now is through what I've been preaching on the road, is the whole idea of mass customization, creating individualized experiences for people, but you have to do it thousands of times a day across the country. So I know you have some thoughts on ridiculously personal experiences. How do you approach that as a chief commercial officer and within the Kimpton lifestyle brands?
So we love the term ridiculously personal experiences. It's what we describe is our end product. That's what is coming off the conveyor belt each and every single day. And it's specific to Kimpton in each of the words. We use the term ridiculously because I think it truly represents Kimpton. It's why when people receive these experiences, it's like, who does that?
Right.
There is no rule book where, guest arrives at the front desk looking slightly harried, tired, and, looks like they need a cocktail, that instead of saying checking in last name, I know that's always me too. And, that they say, oh my gosh, you missed wine hour. Can I grab you a glass of wine? Can I pour you a glass of wine before we check you in and get you all settled out? Like, those are things that you just don't have a rule book for. And life is varied, and the experiences and that a guest service agent and a housekeeper would expect, you can't possibly document them. We're in this 24/7 operation where people are getting great news while they're with us. They're getting sad news while they're with us. They are getting engaged. They are feeling lonely. Like, right, there's all these emotions, and we're their home for that time period. And so we need to ensure that our employees have the ability to tap into their intuition and make the right calls right there in the moment.
So how do you get the employees to make the right calls? Because some of the issues that I see is sometimes employees are scared to make a decision, or sometimes they are afraid that the decision they'll make won't be accepted because it's a little too much, or maybe it's a little too little, so then they wind up being paralyzed. So how do you get them past that to know that they can be their organic selves and deliver memorable experiences and be praised for it rather than condemned for it?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have to start with having a very healthy, open, honest, transparent community. So we, as leaders, we talk about our failures just as much as we talk about our wins, if not even more. Frankly, I think that there is beauty and frankly, gigantic wins inside of failures, that if you just took that one great idea or good idea that kind of bombed and tweaked it a little, it could actually crush it. So I think there's a lot of insights that can be gained from mistakes. And so we talk about them. I have a tradition in one of our team meetings, our town halls. We celebrate. We talk about the oops. We talk about the booyahs, and then we talk about what's up next. So
highly technical terms that you use over there, Kimpton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That also helps.
Yeah. That
also helps. Don't take yourself so seriously. Right. And use some humor. So we do. I mean, I think, in my career, I've had plenty of oopses, and I think creating an environment where people can be transparent and talk about them, no different than raising your kids, right? You got to model the way, and the way is not always perfect, and it's bumpy, but it's part of your journey. And I think that is what creates that environment where people are willing to take a chance, take a risk, be thoughtful. And then when you make a mistake, we'll talk about it and we will, move forward. And I think that's part of growing. So
where do you seek inspiration from? Because as a company that's been so innovative, you need to carry that torch of innovation. You can't be like the major big branded hotel companies. And I know IHD's done a great job at keeping you guys separately so as to not lose what makes you special. So what's that process like for you in the world of inspiration?
Sure. I think the inspiration, absolutely, we look outside the hospitality industry all the time, and I'd say the majority of our inspiration, it's really all over the place. We watch to see how consumers are responding to pop-up shops, and we watch to see how where and how communities and people get involved in music. And we just sort of look to see how people are engaging within the communities and how people are connecting to each other, what they're sharing on social media. So all of that is really interesting inspiration for us, and I think it helps us to stay fresh and stay present with what people are really looking for right now.
And when people find it at your properties, they're willing to put it out there. I find I talk about that a lot as well on this podcast and other conversations about creating those social media moments to help the folks out there express their personality through the stage that you've set there. How critical is it for Kimpton to create those social media moments that'll get people excited to share about the experiences they're having on your property? And do you have any good stories behind that?
It is important. I get such a kick out of it. There's so many, call it Instagrammable moments. We've got certainly a number of cool venues. I think about these like swinging chairs in the sort of green room at the DeWitt in Amsterdam, where people just have an absolute ball. There's all this hanging flowers overhead. It's definitely a very cool Instagrammable moment. And then I think even within room 301, we were pretty excited to partner with Colette Miller of the Global Angel Wings Project, who painted these unbelievable mural of angel wings above the headboard. And so people can sort of stand on the bed and you get these wings coming off of you, and it's just beautiful. And different and special and cool and all those things. And so people are really enjoying that element of room 301, but there's so many other things. And so we think about that, and I think it can come, inside the hotel, outside the hotel, and people really like to find a way to represent their own personality inside these really special, unique spaces.
Last question I have for you. Each of your properties is so distinctly different, yet so distinctly the same. What's the secret to doing something like that? That it is different, it feels different, but everybody knows and feels what that true Kimpton experience is like.
So we like to drill into I think there are incredible consistencies amongst every Kimpton hotel. People love to sort of dip into these unique experiences and feel like they're trying on these different lifestyles and feel like they're, staying in someone's home in Palm Springs or in Amsterdam or in New York or Chicago. And they love that they can count on that there's going to be a very unique design, a really cool, special, fun restaurant and bar, if not multiples. And then most importantly, we really stick to what we call emotional brand standards. So what people are picking up on and what our guests continue to tell us is you are consistently unique. You are consistently warm and friendly. It's those sort of intangible brand standards that really allow us to be, I think, to string all of these different properties together that on the surface look so different, but in fact are all connected very, very tightly with the same point of view and the same level of humanity.
Excellent. I love that. I love how you're speaking about emotional brand standards as opposed to physical brand standards. And there's such a distinction between the two of them. And I think we think about the physical rather than the emotional too much. And without that emotional component, you're not going to get a reaction out of the guest. You're not going to win their loyalty. And you're certainly not going to get them to share their moments, tell their family and friends, and get those people to come and stay with you as well.
Right, especially not a boutique guest. I think someone who's looking to stay at a really cool, beautiful, well-designed property, they're looking for it all, right? They care a lot about the experience, and they will jump ship to the next brand, to the next thing, if you don't hook them with their heart. Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. So before we wrap up here, is anything else that I missed from you?
I think we covered most of it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for going into 2019 and just seeing how Stay Human is going to come to life. I'm going to be, I think some of it I'm up to speed on, and some of it, to the point we made earlier, the teams are empowered to do what they think would be best. I think that's so important to me, and the way that one property is going to bring Stay Human to life is going to be very unique and special to that location and that destination and that team. So I think there's a lot more cool things to come, and I would love to, connect again, and we can talk all about what we did in Philadelphia and what we're going to do in Toronto, and the list goes on and on. But I think that's one thing that has been really, really exciting about this year. And I think in addition, the other thing that's been pretty fun is our new music series called Off the Record, which is where we are bringing together our small groups of members of our rewards program, IHG Rewards Club, and other special guests, and bringing in these really cool indie artists and doing these private concerts. And we get our bar team involved, and of course they pair a special signature cocktail with it, and we have a lot of fun. So that's been something that I think also really pulls through this element of humanity and this element of connection, and it's been pretty special. We'd love to have you at one of them, and we'll send you the schedule. But I think those are one of the other things that we haven't talked a little bit about yet, but I think is another piece of the pie of how we're kind of bringing this whole thing to life and trying to make people feel connected while they're on the road.
Awesome. Well, I would definitely love to have you back to discuss those things when they are fully brought to life, and I would love to see one of them. But I think I'm even more excited by the fact that you were not so disgusted with this conversation that you don't want to ever talk to me again. So I'm really relieved about that one, Kathleen. So thank you so much. Now, before we wrap up, I give every guest the opportunity to do a really good shameless plug. So whatever it is, you can go for it right now.
Visit us online at KimptonHotels.com.
All right.
Or follow us on Instagram.
That was easy enough. Painless enough. Make sure you go visit them. Make sure you stay with them. And I really enjoyed talking with you today, Kathleen. This has been a great conversation. For all you listeners out there, listen, you've got to think differently. And remember the point that she made about emotional connection. I've said that a lot, but I've never heard it put in that way before, with creating a set of emotional standards. It's all about how people feel, especially this day and age. Are they feeling really great about something? Are they really feeling bad about something? That's the impression that they're going to take home with them. That's the impression that they're going to share online. How you make them feel. It's paramount more than anything. I want to thank my guest, Kathleen Reidenbach, for being here today. Of course, the Chief Commercial Officer with Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening every single week to the No Vacancy podcast. And I will be back next week, unless I get myself accidentally stay in room 237 instead of room 301, then that won't be good for anybody. All right, I'll be back next week. Yes, that was a little Shining joke. Go look it up. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Houseman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Houseman. We'll catch you next time.